You're listening to the Seek, Go, Create podcast, a part of the SGC network, for those looking for excellence, moving toward success, and creating something new. And here's your host, Tim Winders.
Welcome, everyone. This is our bonus episode for the Seek, Go, Create podcast, Season 2. So it'll be our final episode. I believe if I've got my numbering correctly, this would be Episode 7 from Season 2. And I've really enjoyed Season 2. It's been really interesting because we've had some specific teaching and some specific tips about living a nomad, and then also some mindset. And of course, kind of even wrapped up Episode 6 with some good old teaching from the book of Luke from the New Testament. So just to kind of wrap up and just share a few thoughts, I wanted to kind of cover the basics of this season and then just share a few closing thoughts as we finish up. When we first started this season, I knew it would be a bit of a challenge because I was going to be talking about something that might be familiar to some people, but might be a totally foreign concept to many. And so I wanted to present maybe a different way of living, a different way of thinking, a different way of functioning and operating in what our culture is, the American culture, but it's in many ways the culture in first world America. And so I wanted to present it, but I also wanted to kind of create this balancing act where I didn't say this is the only way, this is the best way. I just wanted to show some variations of ways to live and ways to operate and function in today's world, in what's almost 2020, the year 2020. And so what we did was we talked about mindset in Episode 1. We kind of really dove into what is it like to think differently in our culture and to not think that you must live in one geographic location, that is the only option you have. And so we talked about the mindset, just about thinking differently and what that looks like. As we went into Episode 2, we talked about the first thing that usually keeps people from being more mobile or traveling or going places, and that is all of their stuff. And we talked about some concepts related to minimalism, essentialism, and really we went over stories. We really told a number of stories in this season about myself, my wife, our family, and what we did really to walk through a number of these things that we talked about. And in Episode 2, we went through the process of what we did to go from having all of this stuff in a 6,000 square foot home down to nothing and carrying around a few things in a Honda van and putting a few things in a storage unit. And that was it. That was what we owned after that process. And that was a lot of fun talking about that in Episode 2. In Episode 3, we talked about house sitting and how we were able to travel around, live in homes that we didn't make the payments, we didn't pay utilities, we didn't do anything. Many times we would watch their pets or watch their home as people went on vacation or holiday, as they call it in other parts of the world. And that's what my wife and I, we've done it. We continue to do it. We really enjoy doing that. And we talked about some ways that you could actually get started doing that yourself in Episode 3. In Episode 4, we talked about how we transitioned from house sitting and then how we were living somewhere temporarily while we were going to Bible school, and then we transitioned into living in an RV. We purchased a 39-foot Class A motorhome that was about 12 years old at the time. We gutted it, redid it, got a great deal on it, and obviously did a lot of the work ourselves. And then early part of 2018, moved in it and just began traveling around. And we talked about, in that Episode 4, we talked about some of the advantages of that, some of the challenges, some of the ways that maybe if you're interested in that, you could get started with that lifestyle. And we continue to live that way today, just so you know. It wasn't just a short season that we did that. And in the near future, we may find a more permanent location and stay there, or may buy some land, buy a home. We're not sure. We're just being mobile and living the nomad life. And we talked about what that looked like in Episode 4 in an RV. In Episode 5, we shared how we are still working as we travel. It's not as if my wife and I are retired. We are not. We see some people that travel that they're retired and they're enjoying life, and that's phenomenal. At the time of recording this, we're in our mid-50s and feel much, much younger than that, and as if we have many, many years to go. And so we still work. We still believe that not even if we had the money, that we didn't have to. We just like being productive. We like doing things. I just finished authoring my first novel. My wife creates things, plus she also works remotely for a company out of California. And I've got my business clients, my coaching clients that I work with, and I work with teams and businesses and leaders and in helping them be as effective and productive as they can be. And I do that while we're on the road. So all of those things we do while we're on the road working. And in episode 5 of this season, I talked about kind of the biggest challenge. I'll just go ahead and give you a tip there. It's Wi-Fi. It's getting internet while you're traveling. And we talked about that and other challenges we face and how we set up our offices and how we're productive and the mental game that we play just to make sure we're getting the most done and things that we need to. And, another thing that I did kind of as a business coach, I'm fascinated by different businesses and what people do to earn income and revenue. And one of the things I've observed as we've traveled and moved around quite a bit is that there are a lot of options to freelance, to start your own business, to share what you're doing as an influencer, as a lifestyle, and do it on YouTube and blogging and podcasts just like this. And there's just an unlimited number of opportunities out there for people to earn income and be mobile. And in that episode, we talked through some of those, obviously not all of them, but I just encourage people to pursue those type things that will allow them to be mobile. In episode 6 of this season, we shifted gears just a little bit, and I kind of went in full-on preaching mode, preaching from Luke chapter 9, verse 1 through 6, and we titled that, Take Nothing for Your Journey. And it wasn't as if I was taking a scripture and attempting to justify or to cause someone to think that they needed to be a nomad and travel. But what I just wanted to show with that was how with those folks that do consider themselves to be disciples and attempting to do what Christ wants them to do with their lives, that there was instructions there in Luke that he gave to his disciples at that time, that for those that think they should follow those type commands or those type instructions is pretty clear. And so go back and listen to that if you're interested in that and interested in preaching and because that's what we did in episode 6. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed doing that thoroughly. And I'm sure that in future episodes and seasons, there'll be a little bit more preaching. So keep that in mind. And I'm hopeful that it'll be a blessing to you. So we had fun with this season, and again, I enjoyed telling the stories of how we moved into this type of lifestyle, some of the things that worked well, some of the things that didn't work well. And I guess as we kind of wrap up, I kind of call this bonus episode almost final thoughts. After I do all the recordings and give myself time to kind of think about it and consider, did I miss something? Is there something I want to emphasize? Is there something I want to change or correct or anything like that? I just want to share kind of what I've termed almost final thoughts. And with this season, as I said when I started off this episode, this bonus episode, I really do not want this to come across as the only way to do things or you have to do it this way. Please don't be that dogmatic. My real goal was really to show that there are options to live a different lifestyle. And, you may take parts of this and use it and travel part of the year and maybe be more nomadic, go do missions work, go do business somewhere else, go write a book, go do whatever. And then, keep your home and come back and stay there part of the year. Anyway, there is no right or wrong answer here. And I want to just make sure I convey that with all sincerity in this final episode of this season. Because, I know many people, they they try to act as if this is the way I do it and that is the only way to do it. And really this whole journey for my wife and I, and even our family, because they're kind of learning and experiencing parts of it also, is just showing us that there are options out there. There are options if you want to travel. There are options if you want to see the world. There are options if you want to, try to lighten your load and not own as much as you currently own. If you want to downsize your home, if you don't even want to live in a home, there are people that do that. And you can embrace those options if you choose to. And like I've said before, I just wanted people to understand that within this season. And I will say this is kind of final thoughts on what I believe probably going to be a short episode. And that is that when you have options, it gives you freedom. And freedom is a great feeling. If you are living somewhere, working somewhere, and you feel as if you cannot move, you cannot leave, you cannot go work somewhere, you cannot do anything else, then there's a feeling of being trapped in that situation. And I don't wish that on anyone. I truly believe that regardless of what work situation you're in, really regardless of the financial situation you're in, regardless of even family situations, things like that, I believe that you can have more mobility and that you don't have to be locked into a certain geography. And really that was what we wanted to discuss as we went through these episodes, freedom. And, years ago, my wife and I, we were in a multi-level marketing business back in the early 90s. And I don't really want to go do that again, but I enjoyed it thoroughly because it allowed me to grow a lot, and we made fairly good money with it. And one of the thought processes that I had at that time that I thought it was important then, but as I've grown and matured, I do not think it's that important. I was under the impression that freedom equaled money. And what I mean by that is this, that if you had a large amount of money in the bank, that you could be more free. And the less money you had, that was less freedom. Now, listen, I do want to say, I like having more money better than I like having less money. So I'm not in any way telling people be poor. That is definitely not what I'm saying here. So please do not take it as that way. But I'm also saying that money is not the only thing that allows you to be free. Because when we first started this journey, when we first started back in 2013, and we were house sitting and traveling, and a short time after that, we were in Australia and New Zealand, and we were living in homes there. I will tell you, and I shared this, I believe, in season 1, that there were many times that we only had a few dollars in our bank accounts, barely enough to get an air ticket to get to the next place or rent a car. And so we were operating on faith and manna. We had things that would just come to us. And I think I mentioned my wife had written a book, and we would get a few dollars in royalties that would come in from sales on Amazon. And maybe an old client or a new client would hire one of us to do some things. And it just kind of kept us going. So we did this and we were free. We really enjoyed it. Now over the last few years, we have been blessed with a lot more financial resources, and those keep coming in. And let me just say, we like traveling much better with finances, with positive finances. But I'm just wanting to kind of emphasize that that's not necessarily a must. You can be free to move around and do things. I bump into a lot of people in campsites and RVs and things like that I know that they are traveling with very minimal resources. They're in an older RV. They're a little bit of a handy person. They can kind of keep them going and keep them fixed up. But they'll pull in, and for a few dollars, they'll stay in a campsite or state parks, and they're traveling around. And again, we did that when we were house sitting. So anyway, listen, folks, I just want people to have options. I want people to be free. And it is my desire for people to be able to live life to the fullest and to do what you were created to do. See, I believe that every person listening to this, you were created, you were born, you're on this earth to achieve and accomplish something. And I believe that our primary task while we're on this earth is to identify and find what that assignment is for any given time. And so I want you to be reaching for whatever that assignment is. And if that assignment happens to be to go to another location or to travel around, I'm hopeful that this season gave you some glimpses on how you can do that. And it removes those limitations. And you can see that you can do things in a little bit different, in a different way. So that is my hope for all of you, is that you're able to just take some of this information and expand your thoughts. So anyway, I'm very excited that we had such fun with this season. Just a brief glimpse into what we're going to be looking at in future seasons. We will most likely have one more season of podcast, and I will tell you that we're in the early stages of developing that, but it looks as if it's going to be something that is tied to leadership training, what is a leader, what a leader isn't, and some unique concepts in relation to leadership. And what I'm hopeful in this season is to pull in a few other people, specifically my wife on this, Glory. She's actually been working as a project manager in a role that we are seeing just how critical and how important being a servant leader is. And we're going to introduce the concept of steward leadership and just talk about some concepts that I believe will be a real learning point for those that are in any leadership role, in business, in families, in ministry, in all areas of leadership. So I'm excited. We're putting the finishing touches on the outlines, and we begin recording that season here in the next few weeks. And so I look forward to making that available. Beyond that, it looks as if we're going to be moving towards an interview format, and we'll be going through, if not a season, it'll be individual episodes of interviews with many people in business, people in ministry. We'll also be looking at people that are families and people that are living the nomad life while doing business. So we've got a lot of cool things in store for you. Looking forward to revealing all that. I'm so excited to be able to share this with you, and I look forward to seeing you real soon with our next season.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Seek, Go, Create podcast, a part of the SGC network. For those looking for excellence, moving towards success, and creating something new. We are constantly discussing bold new topics and ideas here on the network, so be sure to subscribe to be notified when we post new episodes. We look forward to sharing more with you next time, but until then, enjoy the journey.